Hi there, E.A. Tischler here with New Horizons Golf. Today I want to talk to you about the 3 zones of action in the golf swing. The first one is what I call the arm swing. It's the arms, hands, and golf club. If you really want to play this game well, you have to have a good arm swing. You got to be able to manage the club face and the club head. You got to be able to deliver the club head through the ball. You got to be able to send it through the target. And really what you're doing is trying to find a way to use the arm swing to generate some leverage in the swing. We create some hinge angles. During the backswing, we create those hinge angles. During the downswing, we're releasing them. And on the way through, we go through to our target. So the very first zone of action is what I would call your arm swing. The second zone of action is your body action, your pivot action, we call it. And although it's a little bit more complicated than just turning back and turning through, the basic action is turning, but there's also a posturing up that we do in the golf swing as well. So we want to understand, how do we use our body, how do we use it well, and how do we create a good pivoting action, and how do we finish off that pivot action. So that would be zone 2 of action. The third zone of action is how we actually pressure into the ground. So commonly we call it weight shift. It's really a pressure shift. We have to learn to pressure into the ground under the right foot during the backswing, the forward foot during the forward swing. We got to learn to sequence that pressuring action properly. So if you have a good pressuring action, you're going to good ground force, you're going to generate good energy, you're going to have lots of power in your swing. So let's look at a couple of basic things here that we want to understand about these 3 zones of action. So back to zone 1, the arm swing. The first thing that we want to be able to do in the arm swing is make sure that during the backswing we actually create enough hinge angle. We actually hinge our wrists and fold our right arm so we have some levered angles in the backswing. Coming down, we want to return back to where we started. Again, it may not be exactly where we started, but our feel is that we're trying to return back to where we started. We want our hands and our club head to get back to where they started. If my hands are way ahead at impact of where they started, or if my hands are way behind where they started, then I'm going to have a lot of trouble managing that club face through the ball. So we lever those angles in the backswing, hinge and fold. We return back to where we started. And now as we go through, we want to have a good extension, through the ball. So lever, return, extend is the basic action here. Let's go ahead and demonstrate one of those. Okay, so I had a good lever action, I returned it square through the ball, good extension. I sent that ball right out into the corridor towards my target. The second part of the arm swing, or managing that arm swing, is making sure that I'm delivering that club head with force. Meaning that I'm actually not trying to drag the club head through. Most people are told, hold the angle, pull with the left arm, keep this angle as long as you can. I'm not trying to drag the club head through the ball. That's going to get my hands way out ahead of the club head coming back to the ball. What I'm actually trying to do is throw that club head back into impact. Both Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan said you can't release it too soon. Well, what they mean by that? You go up to the top of the golf swing, you have all these angles, you're really actually trying to unhinge it, and you're trying to send that club head back into impact with some force. So I'm not dragging the club head through impact, I'm actually sending it with force. I call that smashing it. So what I'm looking for is a good hinge in the backswing, a good smashing return through impact, and a nice extension out into my corridor. Let's do one more of those. So again, I had a great lever action in the backswing. I returned it through the ball with lots of smash, with lots of force, and I extended out nicely. That ball went right through to my target. As you can see, that was mainly an arm swing. I was not trying to create a lot of activity with the body. I was trying to get my arm swing, warmed up, making sure that I have a good release, good smashing swing, a good extension. I want to make sure that kind of 101 of golf is that I have a really good arm swing. I can deliver that club head through the ball with force, and I can extend it out in such a way that I send the ball to my target. All right, so the second part, or the second zone of action, is the pivot action. What we want to do is make sure that we get into good posture first off. We do that by getting into a nice athletic squat, what I call a dynamic squat. One that it feels like I could do a jump squat from it. I could look up, I could actually do a free throw from here. I want to have a nice dynamic athletic address position. If I bend over too much, I'm going to have a hard time creating a dynamic posturing up action through the ball. And we do need to posture up to the finish. Okay? If I actually too much back on my heels and sort of sit back too much, once again, I'm going to have a hard time creating a nice dynamic posturing up action. So I want to make sure I get in that athletic posture. Okay, once I'm in the athletic posture, I'm going to make sure I just make a nice natural turn away from the ball. As Bobby Jones said, make as generous a turn as you want in both directions with your hips. In modern golf, we've been told keep the hips still and just try to turn the shoulders. Well, most people can't really generate a good pivot action doing that. I look at players like Bobby Jones and Sam Snead and Jack Nicklaus and Payne Stewart and Greg Norman. These are all players that had nice, generous hip turns, and when they wanted more power, they actually turned their hips more. And I think that's more applicable to the average golfer, especially the amateur who doesn't get to practice and play as much as a professional does. So get into our athletic posture, make sure we have a nice deep hip turn going back. Coming down, I'm making that good smashing returning arm swing. Through the ball, I actually want to feel like I'm posturing up. I'm posting on my front leg. It's okay for even my head and my chest to come up as I move through the ball. And then the last thing is, once I've got that smash and that posture up, is I'm just standing up and turning to face my target. In a sense, you can think of the turn more like bookends. Instead of trying to turn from the top, I want you to get the feel that you're turning back. From here, you're more swinging down, posturing up, and then we turn to face our target as we go through the finish. So basically, the pivot action is turn, posture up tall through the ball, face your target in the finish. Let's go ahead and make a good pivot action here now. Good posture at address, start with a good turn, tall finish. So that was a real good pivot action there. My body was actually turning in the backswing, posturing up through the ball, making room for a nice smashing, extending release. I finished tall facing my target. If your pivot action is good and you still maintain a good arm swing, you're going to find your shots are going to go higher and further as soon as you add the pivot in and you maintain a good arm swing. All right, so let's do that again. Good address posture. Feel like I could take a free throw or I could do a jump squat if I wanted. I'm going to turn back, smash and get tall through the ball, face my target in the finish. All right, once again, that was a really good shot. High, straight, long. That ball went right where my finish was facing. Now, there are different types of pivot actions based upon different body types and different body dynamics. But in general, all of them are creating enough depth in their turn in the backswing. They all have some degree of posturing up through the ball, and they all need to be finishing tall, facing their target. And when I say facing your target, I mean I want you in tall, normalized walking posture. From here, I could just start walking right at my target. My caddy can come get me. So if you're in balance, you're in a tall, normalized walking posture facing your target, at least you know you finished off your pivot well. All right, last thing. We want to make sure that the third zone of action is how we get pressure into the ground. And a lot of people do this in a lot of different ways or have a lot of different feelings for it. But the main thing is going back, that we want the main amount of our pressure to be going to the right foot. Some people feel like it'll roll, some people push down on it, some people it torques back to the heel. But whatever way you do it, you want to get pressure into that right foot. My feeling is my left knee and my left foot roll in. So I roll them in, and then I feel like I'm pressuring that right foot in the backswing. In the transition, I feel like the pressure actually drops down inside the right foot, and then it moves over to the left foot. Now, that's my feel. I know when I get on pressure mats or pressure plate that as soon as I transition, my center pressure is way over to my left foot. It's almost like I'm squashing a wet sponge under my left foot. Once I get that pressure left, that allows me to be in a position where I can actually push up and I can posture up using the pressure under my left foot. So the main image here is I'm trying to get pressure under the right foot going back. In the transition, I'm pressuring left, and I'm using that pressure to go ahead and posture up. You'll see some old traditional drills used to say things like left heel up in the backswing, right heel up in the fall through. That was accomplishing the same goal. We see some more modern drills where people will get set up, step back, and so now I move my back foot to my front foot. I'll swing up to the top, step, and try to swing through. Again, that's designed to get that center pressure moving more forward. The main goal, though, is that you want it to match your natural athletic pattern. So find a way of doing it that feels more natural to you, seems more natural to you. So again, mine, left knee and heel come in, pressure the right foot, transition forward, feel like I'm squashing a sponge under my left foot. And when I do that, I get a lot of force. Now, I didn't quite posture up ideally that time, so the club grounded right behind the ball a little bit. But what I got is I got the pressure to the right and the pressure to the left good. Once I get that pressure to the left now, I want to make sure I posture up through the ball. So I had good pressure shifts that time. I also postured up a lot better, so that club caught the ball first than the ground. Yeah, much better shot, right at my target, right where my finish was facing. So remember, you got 3 zones of action in the golf swing. Arms, hands, and club, I call that your arm swing. Your pivot action with your body, how do we turn, and then how do we go from turning to posturing up to a tall finish that we're facing our target. And the third thing, how do we use the pressure into the ground in order to create more power, get more force into the golf swing.